Myself, Haruba Prasad Damarla, a retired DGM from BSNL and ex-adjunct professor, EC Department, PSMR College of Engineering and Technology, Vijayawada, AP. In this session, we will discuss part 1 of signaling system in telephone network. First, we will try to understand what is signaling. A major component of any telephone system is signaling, in which electric pulses or audible tones are used. So we implement the signaling system in telephone network by means of electric pulses or audible tones. So what are the purposes for which we use the signaling? One, for alerting, that is requesting a service. That means you want to make a call. So you have to indicate the telephone exchange to which you are connected that you are intending to make a call. That is alerting the network about your requirement to use the telephone network. The other purpose is for addressing. That means here the example is dialing the called party's number at the subscriber set. From the calling subscriber has to dial the called party number. That is the address of the called party. The other purpose is for supervision. That is for monitoring idle lines. This is one example. So the subscriber should find an idle line. That means the network has to monitor the line which is idle, and that can be allotted to the party requesting or intending to make a call. The other purpose is for information, like providing dial tones or busy tone or busy signal, whatever you call it. In general, signaling may occur. The case 1, within the subscriber loop, that is, within the circuit between the individual telephone instrument and the local office or the telephone exchange. The signaling that occurs between the telephone user and the telephone exchange. That is known as the signaling within the subscriber loop. The other case may be the signaling between circuits between the telephone exchanges. The signaling that happens between two telephone exchanges. Now we will look into the various signaling techniques. Signaling systems link a variety of switching systems, transmission systems, and subscriber equipments in a telephone network to enable the network to function as a whole. So its objective is to link a variety of switching systems, transmission systems, and subscriber equipments so that the entire network as a whole, it will function as a single unit telecom network. There are 3 forms of signaling that are involved in a telecom network, and they are: number 1, subscriber loop signaling. The second one is intra-exchange or register signaling, so which stands for the signaling between different subsystem of the same exchange. That is known as intra-exchange or register signaling. So The third one is inter-exchange or inter-register signaling. This is the signaling that happens between two different exchanges or between exchange A and exchange B. Subscriber loop signaling depends upon the type of telephone instrument used. Decodec signaling in case of rotary telephone and DTMF in case of push button telephone. In case you are using a rotary type telephone, so decodec signaling happens. And in case you are using a push button telephone, so DTMF signaling takes place. Same thing once again, here it is repeated. So this is the rotary telephone, this is the push button telephone. So if you take subscriber loop signaling, suppose if you are using a rotary telephone, so decodec signaling takes place. When you are using this push button telephone, so DTMF signaling takes place. Further, we will continue our discussion on signaling techniques. Multi-frequency signaling has brought about new services like data in voice answer, which we have discussed earlier, which falls in the class of user-to-user signaling facilities. So data in voice answer is a class which comes under the signaling between one user to the other user. Such facilities like DIVA are more common in the context of data communication and integrated circuits. Then the second one is intra-exchange signaling. So this is internal to the switching system and mainly dependent on the type and design of the switching system. So this is the signaling within the telephone exchange, within the telephone switch. So this type of switching depends upon the type of the switch. So it varies from one type of switch to other type of switch. Let us go through the contents. It varies from one model to another, even within the same manufacturer. Let us assume you have a Siemens switch. So you have model 1 at one place and model 2 at other place. So the design and the intra-exchange signaling varies between these two versions. It depends upon the model. Though the manufacturer and supplier is same and same company, it depends upon the model and type of the exchange. This signaling pertains to the signaling between the subsystems of the same switching network, as I already told. So this type of signaling, that is intra-exchange signaling, pertains to the signaling between two subsystems of the same switch, same telephone exchange. Now we will look into the third type, inter-exchange signaling, which takes place between the exchanges with common control subsystems. So it happens between two different exchanges, exchange A and exchange B, for example. It is called inter-exchange signaling or inter-register signaling. Inter-register signaling. The main purpose of inter-register signaling is the exchange of address digits which pass from exchange to exchange on a link by link basis. So the main purpose of this inter-register signaling is to change the address digits from exchange A to exchange B, exchange B to exchange C to exchange D if the destination is exchange D. If the called party is located at D and A is connected to B, B is connected to C, C is connected to D, wherein A and D are not directly connected. That is why it is called link by link basis. Network-wide signaling also involves end-to-end signaling between the originating exchange and the terminating exchange. So this network-wide signaling is called line signaling. And this is another aspect of signaling under inter-exchange signaling. Here we are depicting the classification of signaling types. So let us go through the contents. Signaling techniques fall under two major classes. One is in-channel signaling, the other one is common channel signaling. Now you can see this diagram. So signaling is classified as two major classes. One is in-channel, the other one is common channel signaling. These are the two major classifications as far as the signaling is concerned. Different types of signaling techniques exist in each of these two classes. These are summarized in the figure. So further, the in-channel signaling is classified under different heads, and similarly common channel is also classified under two different heads. Just let us scan through the names of the types of in-channel signaling and common channel signaling. Under in-channel signaling, we have DC signaling, low frequency signaling, voice frequency signaling, and PCM signaling. Further, voice signaling can be in-band or out-band. When you come to common channel signaling, you have common channel associated signaling, and non-associated signaling. So in due course of our discussion and subsequent lectures, we will discuss about all these types of signaling one after the other. So in-channel signaling is also known as per trunk signaling. The other name for in-channel signaling is per trunk signaling. It uses the same channel which carries user voice or data to pass control signals related to that call or connection. So here it uses the same channel used for either voice or data. The signaling information is also transmitted in the same path channel of voice bar data. So there is no separate path for signal. Signal also passes in the voice bar data path, which controls the call. In contrast, common channel signaling does not use the speech or the data path for signaling. So, opposite to this in-channel signaling, in common channel signaling, so the signaling does not follow the same path of either speech or data. It uses a separate and exclusive path for signaling. In common channel signaling, the PCMs that carry voice bar data and the signal are different. For example, between two exchanges, you have some PCMs exclusively for voice bar data communication and a few PCMs for signaling purpose also. So the speech channels are different from signaling channels. They are separate. Signal passes in a separate route or through some separate PCMs, and speech bar data passes through some other PCM trunks. Further, we will discuss common channel signaling uses a separate common channel for passing control signals for a group of trunks or information paths. So in CCS, so for a group of trunks which carries voice and data, there are separate trunk for signaling. For a group of, say, for example, between two stations, if there are 4 PCMs or trunks for speech, there may be one trunk for signaling, one PCM for signaling. In-channel signaling has the merit that no additional transmission facilities are required for signaling, whereas CCS requires additional transmission facilities. Since the speech and signal, they pass through different trunks, so in case of CCS, some additional facilities are required, additional transport network facilities, transmission facilities are required in case of CCS signaling, whereas it is not required in channel signaling. In-channel signaling is influenced by various factors associated with the information path. Since in-channel signaling, both speech and signal follow the same path, same channel, so it is influenced by various factors associated with the information path, that is the path pertaining to voice bar data. This brings out different forms of in-channel signaling. So these are the different forms which I have read out. When an unamplified audio line plant, say short distance physical line, metallic line, maybe of iron, ACSR or copper line of short distance is used. So this permits metallic signaling per speech circuit is used. This is known as DC signaling. So you can adopt DC signaling in case of physical lines of short distance of metallic lines. So this is what it is explained. So short distance physical line permits metallic signaling path per speech circuit, and in that case DC signaling can be adopted. Further we will discuss about DC signaling and other signaling systems. The DC signaling is relatively simple, reliable and cheap. This is about the merits of DC signaling. However, where amplified audio circuits or channels are in use for long distance, low frequency AC signaling may be adopted. So this DC signaling is okay in case the distance between two stations is less. Suppose if the distance is more, that is for long distance circuits, you do require amplifiers to boost your signals and or repeaters in between. If that is the case, DC signaling cannot be adopted. You have to go for AC, low frequency AC signaling. Low frequency AC signaling and DC signaling cannot be provided when frequency division multiplex transmission systems are used. In case if you are using FDM systems in analog communication, so you cannot use either low frequency AC signaling or DC signaling. In such cases, that is in case of frequency division multiplex analog systems, voice frequency signaling is used. You have to go for voice signaling. We have to use. If you are adopting frequency division multiplexing to increase the number of channels between two stations using the same physical media, so neither you can use DC signaling nor low frequency AC signal. Invariably, you have to go for voice frequency signaling. Obviously, a digital signaling scheme is necessary for time division multiplexer systems. So in case of TDM systems, which are at present in vogue, nowadays there is no analog communication. They're all closed long back, some 25 to 30 years back. So in case of TDM, digital signaling techniques you have to use. So digital signals may be PCM signaling or common channel signaling. Further, we will discuss a little bit about this voice frequency signaling. Voice frequency signaling may be of two types, and they are in-band and out-band signaling. As indicated in this diagram, voice frequency signaling can be further classified as in-band and out-band signaling. So what is in-band and what is out-band, we will try to understand. In in-band VF signaling, 2600 Hz frequency is used for signaling purpose, which is in the same frequency band used for voice. So we all know the voice frequency band is 0.3 to 3.4 kilohertz, or rather to say 300 hertz to 3400 hertz. Therefore, in the voice frequency in-band signaling, so the signaling frequency should be within this 300 to 3400 hertz. So for that purpose, 2600 hertz is chosen as a signaling frequency in case of in-band voice frequency. In-band must be protected against false operation by speech, since speech component of 2600 Hz may operate the signal. Here it got a limitation or some negative aspect, because the voice band is 0.3 to 3.4 kilohertz. The signaling frequency, which is 2.6 kilohertz, also falls under within the voice frequency. So in voice also, there may be a component which is within 2.6 kilohertz, that is signal frequency. Therefore, for speech, the signal network may operate by a false indication. So this is the one adverse effect. We will say signal operation due to speech components. So this is one limitation as far as the in-band signaling is concerned. An important advantage of in-band signaling is that the control signals can be sent to every part where a speech signal can reach. Because in in-band signaling, you are using 2600 Hz, which is within 0.3 to 3.4 kilohertz. Wherever the speech goes to anywhere, nook and corner, or anywhere in the world, so your signaling can also reach. That is the advantage of in-band signaling. in spite of certain negative aspects of in-band signaling. Further, we will discuss. It is also independent of transmission systems, as the signals would be carried along the route like the speech signals. So it is also independent. It is not dependent on the type of the transmission systems en route from source to destination, because it is carried along with the voice, because it is within the voice band of 300 Hz to 3400 Hz. Further advantage is, even in case of A to D, analog to digital conversion or digital to analog conversion process, this will also not affect the in-band signaling. These are some of the salient aspects of in-band signaling. Of course, nowadays it is totally outdated and all, we will try to discuss subsequently. In-band BF signaling was the most widely applied signaling system presently in the long-distance telephone networks, owing to its flexibility of operation. This is as far as the academic point of view, and based on the standard textbook, this sentence I have included. But as a matter of fact, nowadays it is not at all used. There is no question of widely used. Maybe it was widely used, to the best of my knowledge, some 45 to 50 years back, in the early stages of this evolution of telecom networks. Nowadays, as a matter of fact, only CCS signaling is used. But for academic point of view, so these are the merits, and we can say mostly widely used and presently in the telephone network and all, but it's all not relevant to the present day of communication. It is totally the other way. It is totally outdated one. Okay. Then we will try to understand a little bit about outband signaling. The word outband itself indicates that your signaling frequency is out of voice frequency band. We all know the voice frequency band is 0.3 to 3.4 kilohertz. That means the signaling frequency would be beyond 3.4 kilohertz. This is the basis for this type of signaling network. Let us go through the contents. Outband signaling uses frequencies above the voice band, that is 0.3 to 3.4 kilohertz, but below the upper limit of 4 kilohertz of nominal voice channel spacing of 0 to 4 kilohertz. So for each channel, in frequency division multiplexing, we allot a space of 4 kilohertz. So though we are using a frequency within 0 to 4 kilohertz, but it is above 3.4 kilohertz. So that is the meaning of outband signaling. Voice band is 0.3 to 3.4 only, but your signaling will be above 3.4 kilohertz, but within 0 to 4 kilohertz, less than 4 kilohertz. The ITU recommended frequency for outband signaling is 3825 Hz. But in the US, they have used 3700 Hz. They have used. This is also outband. 3700 also outband. The ITU recommended frequency is 3825. As far as Indian scenario is concerned, we have followed the ITU recommendation. We have used 3.825 kilohertz as the signaling frequency. 40 years back, when we were working in analog communication systems, that is carrier and coaxial systems, so we were using this signaling frequency as far as Indian scenario is concerned. Outband signal eliminates the problem of signal operation due to speech component of 2600 Hz as in case of in-band VF signaling. So the problem of this signal operation due to speech component is eliminated in outband signaling because you have chosen a signaling frequency beyond 3.4 kilohertz. Since the signaling is out of the VF band, that is 0.3 to 3.4 kilohertz, signaling during the speech period is possible and thus allowing continuous supervision and control of the call. Since you are using a signal frequency which is above 0.3 to 3.4, even while talking also, some signaling operations can take place because it is above 3.4 kilohertz. However, only a very narrow bandwidth is available for signaling. Here, the criticality is the signal frequency bandwidth is very narrow. That is exactly 3.825, maybe 1 hertz or 2 hertz this way or that way. So it should be strictly, the frequency should be strictly at 3.825 kilohertz. Therefore, extra electronics is required to handle the signaling band. As a result, the scheme is not used widely. This is also, as a matter of fact, technically taking this fact into consideration, though it is mentioned as not widely used, even 40 years back we were widely using. That is as far as the industry aspect is concerned. But in academic books, for a student point of view, it is mentioned as not used widely. As a matter of fact, in industry, it is used widely in the days of analog communication. As a matter of fact, it was extensively used in the days of analog communication due to the advancements in the field of electronics. Because of the advancement in electronics, it is possible to generate a signal frequency exactly of 3.825 kilohertz or 3.7 kilohertz in case of the US. So let us sum up what we have discussed today. We have discussed the role of signaling, and we have seen the types of signaling, that is subscribe loop signaling, intra-exchange signaling, inter-exchange signaling, then in-channel signaling and its types, then common channel signaling and types. Then we have, in VF signaling, we have discussed a little bit about in-band and out-of-band signaling. So this is all what I wanted to discuss in this part 1. Thank you for participating in my video lecture. If you like my video, please give a like, comment, and also subscribe to my channel, that is youtube.com/c/Haribaprasad Damarla, and encourage me for making some more videos on telecom subject. Thank you.